Have you ever noticed that a lot of vloggers or YouTubers get millions of views filming in the hood and slums, or a video titled, I visited the most dangerous slums of America, or an African country, Asia, South America, anywhere. So let's get into it. What is a hood? What is a slum? A hood, also known as ghetto, refers to a specific area where people sharing a similar ethnic or racial background live. It is essentially a slang alternative for neighborhood. Additionally, the term hood can also refer to a cover or shelter for a piece of equipment. We're not interested in that part of it, but the interesting thing here says a hood is also a ghetto. So why don't people say, well, I investigated a ghetto, the biggest ghetto in India or in Africa, in South America, or in America for that matter? Because it's pejorative, so you don't want to know. The reason for that is because this is what ghetto means. It says a ghetto can refer to a legally enforced residence area for Jews, but then it became later known for poorer areas, and the word became very sometimes if you refer to someone as being uncultured, it is, or ghetto, it means he's uncultured. He's just from a poor area, a part of a city where members of a minority group are concentrated due to political, social, legal, religious, environmental, or economic pressure. So you get the idea. Now let's talk about some of the titles and the amount of views they get. This one is saying, visiting the most dangerous city in America, 11 million views. How to Survive in the Hood compilation part 1 to 10, 3 million views. Uh, Three Signs a White Dude is from the Hood, 1.8 million views. Melbourne's Most Notorious Suburb Part 1, Dandenong, Into the Hood, 2.7 million views. So you get the idea. Of another one. Welcome to Australia's most dangerous city, Alice Spring, Into the Hood, 4 million views. Inside the Asian Crib Gangs of Long Beach, 14 million views. I spent a day with Rio's Brazil's most dangerous gang, 14 million views. I investigated the most dangerous city in America, 5.5 million views. And then more titles. I spent a day in Jamaica's most dangerous slum, 2.7 views, 2.7 million views. I investigated the world's largest slum, 3.5 million views. Amazing Philippine hoods walking Navota City's extreme slums, 2.6 million views. Inside Nigeria's biggest slum, Beyond Crazy, 11 million views. And eating in Africa's biggest floating slum, Seafood Factories, 23 million views 4 years ago. So all these titles suggest something simple. Why do people actually want to see that? And it's got something to do with what is called poverty porn. And according to Wikipedia, poverty porn, also known as pornography of poverty, development porn, famine porn, stereotype porn, has been defined as any type of media, be it written, photographed, or filmed, which exploits the poor's condition. So basically, anytime you focus on people's poverty, it's a type of addiction that people just want to see. And I like this definition here. It says, poverty porn is used in media through visually miserable and disturbing images that aim to trigger some sort of emotions amongst its audience. I think that's a key part of it, why a lot of people actually enjoy watching YouTubers, bloggers going into really poor areas and giving you the superlatives, the most, the biggest, the most dangerous, the most of anything, just trying to get you to feel some emotions. But all in all, poverty does give people emotions, especially when it comes to showing, being a bit graphic, too close up. It just becomes so uncomfortable. CNN has to say the dangers of poverty porn. It says poverty porn is a tactic used by non-profits and charity organizations to gain empathy and contributions from donors by showing exploitative imagery of people living in destitute conditions. And talk about money. So you're talking about let us help the poor, but the only way to get people to actually help the poor is to put the image right in front of them so that they can empathize, feel a bit of a guilt, and then pull out their wallet and help the poor. Sometimes feel people's pain, and sometimes you get this veristic joy from actually being able to go into people's homes and see what they how they live. And this is the same thing you see where when there's a construction going on, a new construction in your area, and the workers are gone, you have this curiosity to go inside and see what they're doing. You know, the division, the rooms, what how the layout is going to be. You're just curious to see what it's going to be like, what the new neighbors are going to be living in those type of conditions. And I think that also contributes to what motivates people to watch YouTube videos about the hood and the slum. So apparently, it is the same reason why people watch true crimes. And here is a comment from someone who talking about true crimes. He said, "I like it because, as bad as this sounds, it makes my problems feel smaller and more manageable. Like, yeah, I had a difficult day at work and my anxiety is through the roof. But then I watch a true crime thing and I'm like, well, at least I haven't joined a cult or been kidnapped, so things aren't that bad. I'm pretty lucky." And I think that is a valid point when you think about it, because sometimes you earn it. Maybe you live in the U.S. and you're 80K salary, and you're struggling to live. You've got a car, you're paying rent and things like that. But sometimes it becomes overwhelming, and then you sit down and watch, the hood somewhere, and people maybe living in the same America as you, and you're thinking they earn maybe 20,000 and they live on food stamps, and sometimes they have to skip meals, and you're thinking, wow. So on that mental journey, you are basically your mind is elsewhere. It just takes you away from your problems. I've read one reason might be because subconsciously we are trying to learn how to better protect ourselves if we are ever, God forbid, in a similar situation. So that means someone's been kidnapped and they were able to get away from it, get in the car or I'll shoot you. And the person just started to run and that saved him. And whereas others are saying, oh, you panic and you get into the car and then it's just too late. So I can understand that. That's it. I watched the video from Best Ever Food Review channel. I have to say, I didn't really feel emotions watching the video about the Makoko in Lagos, Nigeria, where a lot of people were living. It says over 200,000 people were living in slum-like conditions. And the reason for this was that the way it was filmed, the videographer did not concentrate on the poverty per se. He mentioned that maybe people would sell fish in the boats and the canoes, and they would make about $10 per day, and life was difficult. And then he was explaining a few of the things, and he mentioned, oh, the boats, or people living on boats and steel towels, wooden steel towels. It's almost like Venice. And he asked the guide, do you know Venice? And she said, I don't know. And then, okay, the comparison is probably not a good one because Venice is just a different thing. But you understand, boats and people, Romans and things like that. And one of the things that he mentioned was that a lot of the people were actually poor compared if you were to compare that to maybe the US or other countries. But the poverty is not reflected in their faces because they seem to radiate a certain amount of joy even with limited resources. And then it was about how much do they make? Do they drink the water? And then does the government help? No, the government doesn't help. But the government is embarrassed because anytime people come, they see this massive slum, and they're saying, it's an eyesore. We should get rid of it, but we don't have a solution for all the over 200,000 people living there. And finally, at the end, it was like, what we really need is education. So the video was more about, oh, they're fishermen, We Eat Fish. So it's a food channel and they talk about food. So it was a different angle. So you don't really feel sad because he wasn't pushing poverty right in your face. So that's one. Then you have the other YouTuber, Tommy G, 11 million views, visiting the most dangerous city in America. And in the intro of the video, he was talking about asking people, would you live in St. Louis, Trenchville? And people are saying, no, I wouldn't. It's hard raising your children there. And some of the women were being a bit trying to give a bit more context into what it's like, that you can't just blame the young people. It was lack of opportunity and, parenting. But then you can't give what you don't have to your children. So, but the interesting thing was, the gun and the gang culture and lack of opportunity, glorifying violent lifestyle on social media. And interesting that, they make music and trying to show what life is like, and everyone has a gun. It was a different perspective on the life in the hood. It is fascinating story to watch, especially because it is America, a rich country that just couldn't get its act together and solve the problem of gang violence, guns, and poverty. It's very difficult to feel any type of raw emotions. It's not like when they show you poverty, like in the 80s or 90s when there was famine in some parts of Africa, and then they showed you this little boy. He was basically malnourished and starving to death, and flies all over him, and they're saying, "Oh, this is the children. Give to UNICEF." It makes you really sad that they would film that, but then if they don't show you that, you probably not get emotionally involved to want to donate. And that is what it was, the poverty porn was all about. So, all in all, I think the videos of these slums and hoods would either have, you get confirmation bias, where you think, well, they're all gangsters. So you go in that direction. You think, well, when people just don't want to leave poverty and they enjoy living in poverty and they don't get educated, confirmation bias, because you feel, that's the way a life works. And it can go, it will be a negative experience. In other side, it can be, you can feel empathy, compassion. You feel sorry for them, and you think that you could have probably, your life could have probably been the same. Thankfully, you live in a better, not in the hood somewhere. And then sometimes you feel indifference. Life is what it is. I'm just glad I'm here. And then once you watch the other videos, you go, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Anyway, let's go to McDonald's and have a happy meal. And I've just been entertained.